Welcome to Becoming an Ayn Rand Hero, where we apply the ideas of Ayn Rand to create the life and lifestyle with the qualities of an Ayn Rand hero. I'm your host, Mark Michael Lewis of theprofitabilitycoach.com and heroicmeaning.com, etc. In this episode, we're starting a series on my new album, Sermons in Rock, which is a tribute to The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, in which I took scenes from the Fountainhead, took the speeches, and then organized a particular speech from a particular scene into a song. So I lyrically organized it such that it's structured as a song. And then I created AI music so that I could create a rock song, a rock concept album based on the lyrics. That way I could listen to the key ideas from the Fountainhead in music and sing them and get them stuck in my head, which is exactly what's happened. I can't stop listening to this album. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each song in the album. I'm going to talk about the context. There will be spoilers. It's mostly designed for people who have already read the Fountainhead and are looking for reminders, looking to enjoy the Fountainhead again, maybe even as a reminder study guide. Here are some of the key scenes and the key ideas in those scenes where you're actually learning the words that Ayn Rand wrote in music, sung melodically, beautifully, we might say, with the understanding that having listened to it and gone through this series where we act as a study guide, you'll be inspired to read it again and perhaps then listen to it again and read it again. Now, if you haven't yet read The Fountainhead, although there will be spoilers, I certainly expect that the energy of the music and the enjoyability of it, and then actually reading the words and going, those are interesting ideas. If that's what that book is, I should probably read it to get the whole context for each of these scenes so that I can enjoy it and go into the depth that The Fountainhead is. I mean, it's book, published early 40s and still a bestseller today. What's that about? It must be a good book. As a matter of fact, it is. If you've ever met anyone who likes Ayn Rand and you mention The Fountainhead, they're going to light up there. Oh, yes, it was great. It was fantastic. It was life-changing. It was amazing. And I think that's because it is. So if you haven't read it, then this is your opportunity to get provoked, prompted into reading it. This series is obviously, it's like 400 words from the book and then another 300 words from the book to create it into a song. So I'm only scratching the surface of what The Fountainhead is, but it's a good surface. Really enjoy it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the songs and I'm going to describe the context. Here's what's happened in the book up to this moment, which makes this character making this speech, which I've turned into music, meaningful. Why are the words in this song so powerful? So I'll provide enough context so that you can remember what's going on in the book if you've read it and haven't read it for a while, or if you haven't read it, you'll understand why these particular words said this particular way is so powerful. Like, what do these words mean in the context? Because it's the context that gives the words meaning. They make sense on their own, but it's the context that really makes them powerful. So we'll begin with the first song, The Temple of the Human Spirit.
Temple is a place where man is to experience exaltation.
So, the temple of the human spirit. So what is the temple of the human spirit? This song is about Dominique's testimony in the trial, in the Stoddard Temple trial. So what is Stoddard Temple? Howard Roark, the architect, was commissioned to create a temple. And when he was assigned it, it was to be a temple of the human spirit. And Howard Roark was to portray what he considered to be the highest and the best of the human spirit. And the guy who put him up to it, Hopton Stoddard, with some coaching, told Howard Roark, when Howard Roark said, "But I don't believe in God," he said, "No, I've seen your buildings. You are a deeply religious man." And Howard Roark went, "That's true. Wow, this guy gave insight into me, because I do believe that there is a high, beautiful thing which is so beautiful that it is sacred, for lack of a better term." And so he built a temple to the human spirit in his style, which celebrated the human spirit. But Ellsworth Toohey, right, the villain of the novel, created a situation where it went to trial to say this building is not a temple. It is not a temple. A temple, look at all the temples in the world. They're all about making man small. And this one makes man big. Therefore, it's not a temple. And all of the people who have testified before Dominique have come up and said, this temple is horrible. It's not a temple. Architecturally, it's a joke. There's absolutely nothing good about it, but it's actually fantastic. So Dominique comes up, and Dominique has set herself up through previous actions to be a tremendous critic of Howard Roark. She hates him. Everybody thinks she hates him. So she's the penultimate, or she's the ultimate witness. She's the last person to testify. She's going to say, here is the coup de grace, the nail in the coffin. This temple should be destroyed. And so that's the situation. So she comes up to the stand, and I'm going to read the lyrics, as I'm going to do with each of the songs, and kind of explain. So she starts, and she says, a temple is a place where man, human beings, is to experience exaltation. And that Howard Roark thought that exaltation comes from the consciousness of being guiltless, of seeing the truth and achieving it, of living up to one's highest possibility, of knowing no shame and having no cause for shame, right? To be able to stand naked in full sunlight. So Dominique says this is how Howard Roark thinks of a temple. Now, in the speech, I for each of the songs, I took the speeches and I broke them up into an order that made sense for a song. So sometimes I switched around the order. And in this case, she talks about what Howard Roark says, and then she talks about what Ellsworth Toohey says. I broke them together. So then a male voice comes in this song and represents Ellsworth Toohey. But it's Dominique. She says, but Ellsworth Toohey said that the essence of exaltation was to be scared out of your wits, to bow down and to grovel. Ellsworth Toohey said that to glorify man was to glorify the gross pleasures of the flesh. So she's setting up this contrast between Howard Roark thinks this, and therefore he built this temple. Ellsworth Toohey says this, and therefore this is not a temple. And then she continues. She says, Howard Roark thought that exaltation means joy, and that joy is man's birthright. He thought that a place built as a setting for man is a sacred place. But Ellsworth Toohey said that man's highest act was to realize his own worthlessness and to beg forgiveness. Ellsworth Toohey said that it was depraved not to take for granted that man is something which needs to be forgiven. Okay, so she set up this thing. And then the chorus is that Howard Roark built a temple to the human spirit. He saw man as strong, proud, clean, wise, fearless. He saw man as a heroic being, and he built a temple to that. Okay, so that's the setup. And she continues. She's talking about Ellsworth Toohey and all of the other people who have testified against Howard Roark and against the temple. She says, they spoke of a threat and of hatred. They were right? Because they said that this temple shows hatred for the divine. So she says, they spoke of a threat and of hatred. They were right. The Stoddard Temple is a threat to many things. If it were allowed to exist, nobody would dare to look at themselves in the mirror. And that is a cruel thing to do to men. Right? Ask anything of men, right? Ask them to achieve wealth, fame, love, brutality, murder, self-sacrifice. Not a problem. You can ask that for any of them. But don't ask them to achieve self-respect. They'll hate your soul. Of course, they won't say that they hate you. They'll say that you hate them. It's near enough, I suppose. They know the emotions involved. Right? And then, this is kind of a thing, she's talking to Howard. She says, such are men as they are. What's the use of building for a world that does not exist? And she continues. She says, because in what kind of world did Roark build his temple? For what kind of men? Look around you. Can you see a shrine becoming sacred by serving as a setting for Mr. Hopton Stoddard, for Mr. Peter Keating? And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe, right? So she says, I condemn Howard Roark for the unspeakable indignity he committed. I condemn Howard Roark for casting pearls before swine. Right? This temple is too good for the world. Ellsworth Toohey is right, she continues. That temple is a sacrilege. The Stoddard Temple must be destroyed, not to save men from it, but to save it from men. And again, I'll end with the chorus. Howard Roark built a temple to the human spirit. He saw men as strong, proud, clean, wise, and fearless. He saw man as a heroic being, and he built a temple to that. So, now, I bring you the song, The Temple of the Human Spirit.
Temple is a place where man is to experience exaltation. Howard Roark thought that exaltation comes from the consciousness of being guiltless, of seeing the truth and achieving it, of living up to one's highest possibility, of knowing no shame, and having no cause for shame, of being able to stand naked in full sunlight.
But Ellsworth Toohey said that the essence of exaltation was to be scared out of your wits, to fall down and to grovel. Ellsworth Toohey said that to glorify man was to glorify the gross pleasure of the flesh.
Howard Roark built a temple to the human spirit. He saw men as strong, proud, clean, wise, and fearless. He saw men as a heroic being, and he built a temple to that.
Howard Roark thought that exaltation means joy, and that joy is man's birthright. He thought that a place built as a setting for man is a sacred place. Toohey said that man's highest act was to realize his own worthlessness and to beg forgiveness. Toohey said it was to pray, but not to take for granted that man is something which needs to be forgiven. That man is something which needs to be forgiven. Howard Roark built a temple to the human spirit. He saw man as strong, proud, clean, wise, and fearless. He saw man as a heroic being, and he built a temple to that. They spoke of a threat and of hatred, they were right. The Stoddard Temple is a threat to many things. If it were allowed to exist, nobody would dare to look at himself in the mirror, and that is a cruel thing to do to men. Ask anything of men. Ask them to achieve wealth, fame, love, brutality, murder, self-sacrifice. But don't ask them to achieve self-respect. They will hate your soul. Of course, they won't say that they hate you. They will say that you hate them. It's near enough, I suppose. They know the emotion involved. Such are men as they are. What is the use of building for a world that does not exist? Howard Roark built a temple to the human spirit. He saw men as strong, proud, clean, wise, and fearless. He saw men as a heroic being, and he built a temple to that. In what kind of world did Roark build his temple? For what kind of men? Look around you, can you see a shrine becoming sacred by serving as a setting for Mr. Hopton Stoddard, for Mr. Peter Keating?